Leela was thoroughly enjoying the back rub her daughter was giving her. After a long day of hard work, her joints ached with unbearable pain. As Rosemary finished the massage, she said sadly, "Mum, isn't there anyone at the cafeteria who can help you? Why do you have to carry those heavy buckets and tubs?" Leela turned over and replied, "There aren't any men there, dear. It's just us women, and unfortunately, our work isn't considered heavy labour." Getting up from the bed, she added, "Thank you, daughter, for not leaving your mother to suffer with a sore back. Let's go have dinner. It's probably getting cold by now." With no husband, she had to make ends meet for herself and her daughter. Leela vividly remembered the hardships of her childhood and later years, so she made a vow never to give up or lose hope, even after spending several years in prison. She no longer considered herself an ex-convict, but sometimes people behind her back still called her that, mostly relatives from her ex-husband's side, who had abandoned her when she was imprisoned. Those were difficult years, and she tried not to think about them. Her daughter, understanding and wise beyond her years, never pried into the past, knowing it was painful for her mother. Over dinner, mother and daughter didn't exchange a word. It was only when they sat down to watch their favourite TV series that they both suddenly asked each other the same question. "What are you doing tomorrow?" Laughing, Rosemary jumped up from her chair. "I might go to a friend's house. I don't want to spend another day in front of the computer." Leela shared her own plans. "A day off means it's time to relax. We shouldn't miss this opportunity. Why are you looking at me like that? Let's go to the village tomorrow. Your friend can wait. In winter, you won't refuse some pickles and sweets, right? I know you love cherry jam and salad with bell peppers, though we'll have to work a bit to enjoy these treats later." Rosemary nodded and sat back down with the remote. "Fine by me. Fresh air will do me good. By the way, do you remember what episode we're on?" The next day, Leela woke up before her daughter, quickly got ready and prepared a light breakfast. The aroma of a delicious omelette soon had Rosemary on her feet. "I'm up, Mum. I'll be at the table soon." After a quick wash, Rosemary was in the kitchen within 5 minutes. Placing a generous serving of omelette in front of her, Leela dreamily said, "Wouldn't it be nice if someone brought breakfast in bed?" Noticing her daughter's surprised look, she added, "Never mind, just morning thoughts." After a light meal, they started getting ready for their trip. Leela decided to stock up on plenty of food to last the whole weekend. An hour and a half later, mother and daughter were at the dacha, first tidying up the house and putting away the groceries. This didn't take long, and Rosemary hurried to the flower beds to check on her plants. But as she passed the raspberry bushes, she stopped. "Look, Mum, you said they wouldn't take, but see how beautiful they are." Approaching her, Leela replied restrainedly, "So what? I didn't count on them anyway." These raspberry bushes had been planted with the help of her cousin Sylvia. Memories flooded back, bitter and unwelcome. It was because of Sylvia that Leela had ended up in prison. Years ago, Sylvia had decided to start a business and asked Leela to take on some responsibilities to cut costs. Though Leela knew the scheme was illegal, Sylvia convinced her it was safe. In the end, Leela was the one who paid the price, spending a few years behind bars, while Sylvia managed to escape unscathed. It is curious that after the incident, her cousin vanished and never contacted her again. Throughout all the years of her imprisonment, Leela did not receive a single letter from her cousin, even though she was incarcerated not only for her own sins. This was what Leela did not want to remember, but the raspberry bushes, which had taken root so well and bloomed, involuntarily brought all these bitter memories to the surface of her consciousness. Realizing that she had touched a painful topic, the daughter began to apologize to her mother. "I'm sorry, Mum. I didn't mean to upset you again. On the other hand, the bushes are not to blame, but if it's hard for you to look at them, I'll dig them up." Leela smiled. "No need, dear, let them grow. Thank you, darling. They really are not to blame." Sitting on a bench in the gazebo, Leela pondered. Maybe I'm really overthinking this. So what if it happened? I don't have to remember it for the rest of my life. She asked herself so many questions at once that it was unclear which one to answer first. And what would change if she found the answers? Leela did not know this yet, but she was sure that under no circumstances would she meet her cousin and make peace with her. Apparently the pain and anger had taken deep root, and Leela had no desire to communicate with Sylvia. And where was she? What had become of her? No one knew, and no one tried to find out. Let it all remain in the past. Unexpectedly, her daughter suggested a distraction. "Come on, Mum. I planted some flowers last time. Let's see how they turned out." Ruffling her hair, Leela stood up and followed Rosemary to the whimsical flower beds made from empty old wooden planks. The flowers had indeed taken root and were doing relatively well in their new home. Rosemary joyfully walked around the flower bed. "Would you look at that? I was worried that nothing would come of it. See what a good homemaker your daughter is." Smiling in response, Leela cheerfully said, "I see everything. Don't think I don't notice. Bring the tools and a bucket. We'll weed and make new beds." The weekend flew by quickly, and soon mother and daughter returned home. While Rosemary could continue to manage her time, as she was on summer vacation, Leela had to prepare for her next shift. The cafeteria where she worked was located near the factory. In the morning, as she left the house, she decided to take a different route than usual. Passing several residential buildings, the woman suddenly stopped. A little boy was peeking out of the basement across the street, looking around warily. It was clear that he was frightened and hiding from someone. Leela approached the basement, and the boy tried to run away, but the woman managed to grab him by the sleeve. The thin, frightened boy looked at the stranger warily and said nothing. Leela, shaking her head, softly asked, "Are you hungry?" The boy nodded and almost cried. Looking him straight in the eyes, she saw anxiety and despair. Without hesitation, the woman led the boy to the cafeteria. Seeing the child with her, her colleague smirked. "Wow, it's been 2 days and you've already given birth again. Whose handsome boy is this? Don't tell me you are hiding another child from us." Leela only grumbled in response. "Always joking, Kate. Just feed the boy. He hasn't eaten in a long time." While her friend treated the boy, Leela thought about what to do with him. She couldn't think of anything better than to temporarily shelter the homeless boy at her place. After all, he had been hiding in the basement, and it was clear that he had either run away from home or, worse, was wandering the streets. At the same time, Leela understood that she would have to find his parents one way or another. Then Kate approached her. "Listen, I wanted to ask him what he would like to eat, but your boy just points with his fingers. I think he's mute." Leela was slightly taken aback. "Oh my goodness, I haven't even properly introduced myself to him." Changing her clothes, she went to the kitchen, where the foundling was sitting in a corner. "Can't you speak at all?" The boy shook his head, and then wrote with his finger on the table, where flour was scattered, "Ian." Leela placed a plate of vegetable salad with a cutlet in front of him. "Eat, Ian. Vitamins are excellent for you, so you can only communicate with gestures. Well, how are we going to talk?" But remembering that her daughter had a friend whose sister was deaf and knew sign language, Leela sighed with relief. "Well, okay, we'll figure something out." Ian spent the entire day by Leela's side, watching her cook with apparent interest. However, that evening, as Leela prepared to head home, Ian protested, gesturing that he needed to be taken back to the basement. Leela shook her head in response. "No, you won't be going back to that dungeon. Tonight you'll stay with me, and tomorrow we'll look for your parents." Little did she know the revelations that awaited her. Ahead lay days of searching and a shocking outcome. Interestingly, Leela's daughter Rosemary calmly and even joyfully accepted the homeless boy, She knew a bit of sign language and quickly found a way to communicate with him. Leela, curious, asked Rosemary to find out about his parents. "Ask him to explain, so I can find them more easily." Rosemary began conveying her mother's request through gestures. Ian nodded and started signing back, with Rosemary translating. "Basically, Mum, he ran away from an orphanage. He has no idea where his mother is." Remembering another crucial detail, Leela asked, "I almost forgot. How old is he?" Taking a pen and paper from Rosemary, Ian wrote that he was 8 years old and begged not to be sent away. Nearly in tears, Leela exclaimed, "Oh, dear Lord, how could I throw a child out onto the street?" She thought to herself, yet his mother didn't hesitate to do just that. The very next day, Leela reported Ian to the child welfare authorities. A stern woman, the inspector, dryly said, "You were obligated to inform the police immediately upon finding the child. Otherwise, it looks like you kidnapped him. What if his parents are searching for him, or the orphanage is in a panic? Do you think that's right?" Leela was taken aback. "You're right, of course, but I couldn't leave him in that basement, and I did call you. May I take care of him, while you would be looking into all the circumstances?" The welfare worker softened her tone. "Thank you for not abandoning the boy. You could have just walked by. Let's do this. Let him stay with you for now. We'll look into the circumstances, but you must understand that this is a violation, and we are obligated to return him to the orphanage." The search dragged on for several days. One day, Leela received a letter from a notary in her mailbox. She didn't know what it contained, as she wasn't expecting any inheritance. Her mother had passed away 2 years ago, and her father had never been part of her life. To avoid tormenting herself with guesses, Leela opened the letter in the presence of her daughter and their little new housemate. She turned pale as she read it. The letter was from a notary in a neighbouring region, informing her that she had inherited a house in a village, according to the will of her cousin Sylvia. The notary also requested her presence to discuss some details. Taking a day off work, Leela visited the notary. He greeted her in the reception area and led her to his office. Sitting down, Leela asked, "Why such an honour from my cousin?" The notary shrugged and replied reservedly, "I can't say, but your cousin Sylvia passed away after a long and serious illness. As I understand, you weren't in contact and couldn't have known. Just before her death, after making her will, Sylvia gave me this envelope. I don't know what's inside, but it seems to be some kind of message." At that moment, tears welled up in Leela's eyes, and she unabashedly took a handkerchief from her pocket and pressed it to her face. The notary waited for her to compose herself before continuing. "And another thing, Sylvia mentioned in passing that she had or has a child, and she asked that he be included in the will. I checked, of course, but found nothing. Then came the news of her death, and the trail went cold. Maybe you could help me in this situation." Opening the envelope, Leela nearly lost her senses. Inside, along with a folded notebook page, was a small photograph, and there, captured in the image, was Ian. It was difficult to mistake him, the same bright blue eyes, long lashes, and a few freckles around his nose. Leela continued to cry as she read the message. "Forgive me for everything, though even the most sincere apologies won't bring back the time you spent in captivity. I lost everything, my business, my relatives, and my son. I was stripped of my parental rights, and my child was taken to an orphanage. I didn't want to ask you for help, and my grief burned me out. Now I realize that I am living my last days. If you can, find my son Ian. He is a kind and gentle boy, and will accept you as his own mother. Though he is mute from birth, I don't think this will be an obstacle for you." At the end of the message was the address of the orphanage where her son had been taken. Dropping her head to her knees, Leela sobbed even harder. The notary helped Leela resolve all the issues and even assisted in finding her sister's grave. Meanwhile, the child welfare authorities had already discovered where the boy had run away from and were preparing documents for his return, but Leela firmly refused. She provided them with all the necessary certificates proving that Ian was the son of her cousin, and thus not a stranger, but her nephew. After some hesitation, the authorities left Leela in peace, and even helped her become his legal guardian. In the end, Ian became a full-fledged member of their family, and soon, realizing that this had to be done sooner or later, Leela took the boy to his mother's grave. Ian cried for a long time, but eventually calmed down and, through gestures translated by Rosemary, conveyed that he would always remember his mother and accept them as his own family. With that, the difficult and painful conflict between the two women came to an end. Though the reconciliation did not happen as it should have, Leela forgave her cousin, and the past began to release its grip, fading further and further away.